I am here to defend the indefensible, apparently. And some of you may be wondering, what in the world could I possibly say that's going to speak out on behalf of what is so seemingly an appalling and stupid program? And I think it's important to note that I don't actually disagree with the assessment that the Delaware program was in so many ways appalling and stupid, so stupid. But I think you have to understand, I hope, where I come from and what I want to argue here. On my blog at collegefreedom.org and in my book, Patriotic Correctness, it really is a parade of appalling and stupid people who have had their rights violated on college campuses. Now, there are many wonderful people who have their rights violated as well on college campuses, but there are actually quite a few really stupid people, from Ward Churchill to Holocaust deniers, who have their academic freedom violated. And one of the things I try and do is speak for the principle of freedom, not for the people or for the program. And so in defending, in some sense, the Delaware program, I don't want to defend a lot of these really stupid things, and I certainly don't want to infringe upon anyone's right to criticize them. I think it's absolutely essential to criticize the Delaware program. Where I stand is the question of should it be prohibited? And on the whole issue is the question of this panel, are the dorms politicized? My answer to that is sadly no. And what we need to do is find ways to politicize the dorms, to bring political and intellectual content into the dorms, and to get away from what we just heard presented as the model of the dorms as a bunch of pizza programs, the pizza program model of the dorms. What I believe is that we need intellectual engagement anywhere we can get it on the university, including in the dorms, and we need to do everything we can to encourage it. We need to bring residence hall staff into the role of educators, trying to help teach students about ideas and to help them debate ideas. And I come from that in part because of my own experience as an undergraduate at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign, where I lived in the dorm Allen Hall. And one of the things they had in Allen Hall was a program called Unit 1. Unit 1 was probably one of the best single experiences of my college career. It was something I regarded as deeply intellectual. It was also deeply politicized. It was an unfortunately, explicitly kinds of left-wing program. What it did is it taught classes within the dorm that were for credit from the university, but it also brought in various guests in residence who spent a week or more inside the dorm, living in the dorm, doing programs, workshops, talking to students at breakfast. It really is a wonderful program, with the sole exception of the fact that almost all of the guests are left-wingers. And to me, the flaw in that is that it's something that needs to be improved. What I fear is that a kind of war on politicization, an attempt to suppress political speech in the dorms, would remove what I regard as one of the better experiences that I had in college. Now, to talk specifically about this Delaware program, there are really two Delaware programs, as you've heard. There is the 2007 to 2008 program, and then there was the 2008 to 2009 program, the one that's currently we're in the middle of. And they're very different programs. And I think in many ways the 2007-2008 program was entirely indefensible. And it was entirely appropriate for FIRE and NAS and all the others to step in, not just to criticize it, but to demand reforms. Where I came in and what I was troubled by was the debate about the newer program, the 2008-2009 program. The proposal that was made by FIRE and NAS to prevent it from doing more than anything more from being a pizza program. And the key issue for me, I think we need to focus on, is not politicization. I think it's a very kind of vague word. It's also a problematic word because, of course, political debate is perfectly appropriate at the university. It's something we want at the university. The idea of politicization in the sense of political debate is something we should all aspire to have. What's not permissible to me is the idea of compulsion at the university, the idea of forcing students to believe certain things. And that's where we get into the realm of illegitimate things that need to be fixed. And I've been someone who's been very much opposed to compulsion in all sorts of ways. In fact, I've been fighting my administration at Illinois State University publicly and annoying them in a number of cases because I strongly object to the rule at our university that all students are required to live in the dorms for 2 years. And I believe that a university has no right to compel students to live anywhere, that they should be free to live wherever they want. And when they choose to live within the dorms, they should be free to think and do whatever they want so long as they're not violating the rights of others. And that, I think, is the firm principle we should stand on with regard to the dorms. But that principle of compulsion is something that I think is not violated by the new Delaware program. And I think we sort of heard an admission of that. And that's a very important consideration. It was violated, although not to the most serious degree, by the initial program, in the sense that you had the Res Life administration really trying to give students the impression that these programs were mandatory. They were not, of course, actually mandatory. But the attempt to deceive students into thinking that they're mandatory is a kind of compulsion. And it's something that needed to be addressed. It was addressed. The 2008 to 2009 program explicitly said that these are not required. As far as I've heard and anyone else has heard, nobody is behind the scenes in the dorms at this moment telling students you have to go to these programs. So the compulsion element was in my mind, the flaw in terms of, from a free speech perspective, of the original Residence Life program. The compulsion aspect is removed. And to me, that when that compulsion was removed, that removed the objection in terms of taking action to prohibit it. Now, that doesn't mean it should be free from criticism. There are still, especially in the original program and even in the new program, a large number of really stupid things about the Residence Life program. And I could go on about lots of them, from the inane and idiotic discovery wheel to all sorts of other things. So I have lots of problems with the Residence Life program. The one thing I don't have a problem with is the idea of having intellectual content in the dorms. That's the one thing that the Delaware program gets right, is that there should be attempts to educate students anywhere, and that there should be efforts to put together programs that do that. That's the one thing they got right. The way they implement it is all wrong, but that in itself is correct. The other major issue I want to address, and here I disagree with Carrie Nelson and as well as others, is about the issue of faculty control. And what Carrie Nelson had said to me is that the problem with what happened at Delaware was that the faculty weren't in charge of it. If only the faculty had been in charge with it, they would have stopped all of the idiotic parts of it from the beginning. I'm not quite so confident about the skills of the faculty to stop stupidity, but I don't believe in the concept of faculty control over the extracurriculum. And here there is a clear dividing line between what is the curriculum and what is the extracurriculum. The curriculum, which is under the control of the faculty, refers to the courses that are given for credit. And there is legitimate forms of compulsion within the curriculum. You can legitimately require students to go to certain classes and to read certain books and to display certain amounts of knowledge. There are, of course, illegitimate forms of compulsion that can occur in the classroom, such as grading people inappropriately. But that is the realm of the curriculum that is the realm of faculty expertise. The extracurriculum is everything outside that. The extracurriculum on the university is everything that is not compulsory. That is what goes on in the dorms, it's what goes on in student organizations, it's what goes on in orientation programs. which sadly are sometimes perceived to be compulsory, and attempts are made by universities to make them compulsory. But just talking here about the dorms and about this Res Life program, the extra curriculum does not belong to anyone. Everyone is free to participate within the extra curriculum, to make their own programs, to express their own ideas, to do what they wish. And no one has a veto power over what someone does in that, in the sense that the faculty do not get to control what administrative bodies create as programming in the dorms. Nobody gets to control what students design as programming. That even if it pretends to be educational, that is the function of everyone at the university, is to try and help to educate everyone. And this image, for example, of the mental footprint. The ideal university is the case where we're all putting mental footprints on one another. We're all stepping all over everybody's ideas and challenging them and countering them. And it can seem messy at times, certainly, but the role is not to then say within the extra curriculum, you're not allowed to step there. You're not allowed to try and educate someone. You're not allowed to express an idea. And that, to me, is why it was so disturbing in many ways of the attempts to restrict the 2008-2009 program. Because, as I said, the new program, when it was designed, even though it had a great deal of the same idiocy in it, it had removed all of the compulsion. And what was going on in the efforts of FIRE and the NES and certain conservative groups was to say that Residence Life should not be allowed to have these programs, should not be allowed to have any programs, organize any activities that might be political or controversial in any nature. And that should raise a red flag for anyone concerned about free speech on campus. At any time you find yourself saying, in a voluntary situation, you're not allowed to organize a program that's political or controversial, that should alarm anyone that that kind of language is being proposed. And really what I regarded the attempts to prohibit these kind of activities in the new Residence Life program as a kind of dumbing down of the incredibly stupid. That is, taking a really dumb program and getting rid of all of the intellectual content, all of the even effort at intellectual content. And that, to me, is exactly the opposite of what we should be trying to do. We should be trying to enhance intellectual content in these dormitory programs, enhance political debates and thoughtful activities. And to be sure, the Delaware approach is not a very good approach. But in a land where we have freedom of speech, the proper response to that is not to try and prohibit Residence Life from having politicized or controversial programs. The proper response is to criticize them when you think they're doing something wrong. The proper response is to organize alternative programs that you think provide a different and better model of education. There are all of these kinds of voluntary options open, but what you, in my view, should not have is someone giving orders to Residence Life to tell them that they're not allowed to engage in politics, that they're not allowed to engage in what someone regards as politics. Because engaging in politics is an essential part of intellectual life. And again, as long as it's done in a non-compulsory way, the only objection is to the content of the program, but not to allowing it to exist. And I think in that, what we have to understand is that this job, what we have to look for is how can we create better programs? How can we create a better extra curriculum? One that in many ways models what happened to me, at least in Unit 1 at the University of Illinois, but that also provides a model for conservative views and for other views to be heard. And I think we need to be wary of this kind of statement that we need to get politicization out of these programs because the wonderful, in my view, very good programs that NAS is encouraging that promote American institutions on various campuses are precisely a good model in many ways of politicized programs. They're conservative politicized programs that try and encourage students to change their views to appreciate American history and American institutions more. And, of course, you may disagree that that's not really politicization. I think everybody regards their own promotion of their own views as just being good ideas and not politicization. They regard politicization as when their ideological opponents promote their views. What I view politicization is perfectly appropriate, that what we need to do is to restrict compulsion and to make these truly voluntary activities. Once we have a situation of freedom, then we're going to face, I think, the issue of what Residence Life in Delaware does now, which is how do you in a non-compulsory way try to educate students? And unfortunately, I don't think the Res Life people have anything close to the right answer to that. What I think we need to do is try and educate them, to try and convince them to put a proposal up forward and do more activities that are more intellectual, that are more diverse, that promote more debates. And if they fail to do it, what we need to do is try and help create universities where anyone is free to create these programs. And that, to me, is the model of intellectual diversity that we need to have on college campuses. And that's precisely why I spoke out in defense, a limited defense, of what was happening with the Delaware program.
Thank you, John.